Hello there.
The cinema courtroom is now in session.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, welcome back to the Cinema Courtroom Show. I am once again your host and galactic judge, Makram Mark, presiding as always over another groundbreaking and suspenseful episode where we put your favorite blockbuster motion pictures on trial. Whether you're listening on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Substack, Amazon Music, or the Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel. We thank you for tuning in and ask that you don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast on your way out. Every click on the icon counts, so please ring the notification bell and share this podcast with your friends, family, cat, dog, pigeon, whomever. We do not discriminate here, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, and do not forget to, do me a solid and rate the Cinema Courtroom Show out of 5 on your favorite platforms as well. Because trust me, it really, really, really assists in the boosting of the algorithm machine more than you know. Now, without further ado, let's not waste any time and review John Wick Chapter 4.
You come here thinking there is a way out of this world for you, Mr. Wick. There is not. Le Centre Pompidou.
Sacre-Cœur.
Sacre-Cœur. Weapons.
If you win, the table will honor its word. You will have your freedom. But you won't take it. Blades.
Pistols. Dueling pistols. 30 paces. In the event that both parties survive, each will approach the other at increments of 10 paces until only one remains.
When it comes to action films, there's always been something universally captivating about a lone hero on a relentless quest. And that is precisely why John Wick stands out from the rest. Played brilliantly by the charismatic Keanu Reeves, the most gratifying human being in Hollywood. John Wick, played by that actor, is a character who has become synonymous with determination and combat skills. From the moment we first witnessed John Wick's journey unfold on the silver screen, we were immediately drawn into his world, a world infested with adrenaline-pumping gunfights, high-octane chase sequences, and a level of stylized violence that somehow manages to be both gritty and elegant at the same time. What sets John Wick apart from your typical action movie, though, is the explicit details and world building that director Chad Stahelski and writer Derek Kolstad have infused into the John Wick series. They've managed to craft a thoroughly constructed universe, a hidden society of assassins with its own rules, codes, and intriguing characters. But beyond the mesmerizing action and intricate world building, What truly captivates me about John Wick is the emotional depth that lies beneath the surface. Despite being a renowned assassin, John Wick is a man driven by love for, well, his puppy and his deceased wife, as well as an unrelenting desire for redemption. It's this human element that allows the audience to connect with John Wick on a profound level. And let us not forget the impeccable choreography and stunt work that goes into creating those jaw-dropping action set pieces. The John Wick franchise has become synonymous with its masterfully executed fight scenes where every punch, kick, and gunshot is a carefully shot symphony of violence. It's a testament to the dedication and skill of the entire filmmaking team. So, whether it's witnessing John Wick's unrivaled combat skills, exploring the depths of the clandestine underworld, or simply immersing ourselves in the breathtaking visuals and heart-pounding soundtrack, there's no denying the sheer enjoyment that this franchise brings to the table for me. In today's review, I am going to be talking about John Wick Chapter 4. But I do know that I would be remiss to review this movie without giving you context on why John Wick stands out to me as an action series, now a franchise. It's really important that those of you listening heard what I had to say about John Wick as a series overall, and to get some basic comprehension of the standards that I have for its fourth installment. That's why I went on a bit of a, speech on John Wick as a series. Because, again, I think the context is vital in comprehending the rest of this podcast. Focusing my attention on this fourth John Wick chapter, my commentary on it will consist of a number of components: plot, cinematography, acting, and where John Wick Chapter 4 ranks in comparison to John Wick 1, John Wick Chapter 2, and Chapter 3. In John Wick Chapter 4, the story takes place in the bustling metropolis of New York City. Our protagonist, John Wick of course, seeks revenge against the almighty High Table. He finds refuge underground with the Bowery King. However, their hiding spot is short-lived. John embarks on a journey that leads him to Morocco, where he eliminates the Elder, a vital figure in the High Table. However, the consequences of the killing of that Elder quickly catch up to John Wick. A formidable High Table member named Marquis Vincent Bisset de Gramont, armed with unlimited resources, becomes determined to eliminate John Wick from the equation. The situation becomes dire for Winston, the manager of the new Continental Hotel, as he is blamed for failing to carry out the assassination of John Wick in John Wick Chapter 3. The Marquis punishes Winston by stripping him of his managerial duties, declaring him excommunicado, and destroying the New York Continental. To escalate things even more, Sharon, the concierge, is executed. In an attempt to seek safety, John finds refuge at the Osaka Continental in Japan, managed by his friend Shimazu Koji. I probably butchered that character's name. Chitty, the Marquis' second in command, accompanied by high table assassins, and Kane, a retired assassin, arrives to investigate the Continental with the help of Akira, Koji's daughter, or Koji, whatever. Everyone is evacuated just in time. John finds himself battling waves of armored assassins, which is where you see most of the action sequences of this movie, leading up to a climatic showdown with Kane. However, their fight is interrupted by quote-unquote Mr. Nobody, a bounty hunter who aids John Wick in his escape. Amidst that chaos, Koji valiantly fights on John's behalf, but tragically dies while Akira is spared. So, John Wick returns to New York, and then he meets Winston at Sharon's gravesite. Their conversation takes a decisive turn when Winston suggests invoking an ancient high table tradition, a duel. To challenge the Marquis, John must request the duel on behalf of a crime family, which didn't belong to at the time. This pretty much means that John Wick would need to regain his status with the Ruska Roma syndicate by avenging his adoptive sister's father, who was killed by a high table member named Killa Harkin. So then we have another action sequence where John tracks down Killa at his nightclub, and then with the assistance of Kane and Mr. Nobody, enacts his revenge. Winston then takes it upon himself to relay John's challenge of a duel to the Marquis, resulting in the setting of the duel's parameters set in location Paris, moderated by the High Table's emissary. Kane is reluctantly nominated to take the Marquis' place, and then both John and Winston must appear at a certain time quote, otherwise they're going to have to face execution. The Marquis are desperate to prevent John from reaching the duel, so they place a bounty on his head. And then, another action sequence, John battles through countless assassins, including intense encounters with Mr. Nobody, before finally arriving at the duel's location. So, the duel is comprised of 3 rounds, which affect both John and Kane physically. As the final round approaches, the Marquis attempts to seize the opportunity to strike John down himself. However, Winston reveals a crucial detail. Hold on a minute. John hasn't yet fired his third bullet, which is a requirement for the duel to proceed. Exploiting that situation, John eliminates the Marquis, emerging as the victor in the end. With the Marquis defeated, this is now the end of the third act. Both John and Kane are granted their freedom from the High Table. Winston is reinstated as the manager of the New York Continental. However, the battles and injuries take their toll on John Wick, and then John Wick collapses to the ground, while also reflecting on his life and marriage before succumbing to his wounds. Thus, the epic tale of John Wick Chapter 4 concludes, packed with relentless action, gripping suspense, and a relentless pursuit of justice. It exhibits the unyielding determination of John Wick to the audience as he navigates a world governed by an unforgiving organization, from the gritty streets of New York to the exotic landscapes of Morocco and the halls of the Osaka Continental. John Wick's journey captivates with its high-stakes conflicts and complex alliance agreements. Throughout the course of John Wick 4, the narrative weaves a web of intrigue and tension propelled by the relentless pursuit of revenge. John's quest to dismantle the High Table, draws him into a shadowy realm where loyalty is tested and alliances are forged amidst all of that chaotic jazz. As John Wick faces insurmountable odds and confronts dangerous adversaries, John's indomitable spirit shines through, highlighting his unwavering resolve and lethal skill sets. The story is also enriched by a cast of compelling characters, each with their own motivations and agendas. From the enigmatic Bowie King to the resourceful Winston and the fierce Akira, these individuals bring depth and complexity to, well, the narrative in a way, crafting a tapestry of personalities that then intersect and collide in a whirlwind of violence and retribution. Visually, John Wick Chapter 4, and we're going to be talking about the cinematography a great deal in this review, but visually, John Wick 4 manages to deliver a feast for the eyes with, again, stunning cinematography, which we're going to get to, that captures the vibrancy of New York's bustling streets, the mystique of Moroccan landscapes. That desert shot was beautiful. And the elegance of the Osaka Continental. The action sequences are choreographed in a very organized way, showcasing John Wick's signature fighting moves that seamlessly blends gun fu and hand-to-hand combat and brutality, leaving audiences on the edge of their seats. Or at least that's what the movie's trying to do. Whether or not it achieves that, I'll get to as well. While John Wick's narrative, John Wick 4, takes us on an adrenaline-fueled journey through a realm of assassins and intrigue, it also delves into themes like honor, loyalty, and the consequences of a character's actions. John Wick's conflict with his own past and the internal toll it has taken on his life is palpable, increasing the emotional weight and impact of the movie, as it refers to his relentless pursuit of justice that drives him forward. In the end, John Wick Chapter 4 is a feat of strength, stretching the boundaries of action cinema while maintaining its signature style and intensity, bringing together an ensemble cast, gripping narrative, and visually stunning sequences in order to make an unforgettable cinematic experience. Okay, so now that I pretty much summarized the plot for this movie and the audience's perception of it, and before we continue to converse about John Wick 4's cinematography, I just have a few insights that I want to share, alright? So, my first insight is that John Wick 4 left me anticipating the intense action and how the third act was going to unfold. However, I do think that the plot for John Wick Chapter 4 could have utilized some screen time to place a emphasis on Winston's betrayal in the third John Wick movie, rather than just have them briefly acknowledge it and move on. I was kind of expecting John Wick to come up with some long-term plan to remove Winston from the equation, but you know what? I enjoy just viewing the dynamic between John and Winston anyway. So yeah, there's that. I enjoy John Wick and Winston getting along and, collaborating, but, from a realist point of view, you would not take kindly to a friend who tried to take a hit on your life in the last movie. So, I don't know. Okay, now let's talk cinematography. Look, put John Wick aside for a moment. Cinematography plays a crucial role in action movies. Period. Like John Wick, of course. By capturing and enhancing the dynamic and adrenaline pumping sequences that define the action picture genre. Through skillful camera work, angles, and movements, cinematographers have the ability to amplify the intensity and impact of action sequences, immersing the audience in the heart-pounding experience, and it contributes to the overall pacing and rhythm of a movie like John Wick. The choice of camera angles, rapid cuts, and fluid tracking shots can heighten the sense of urgency and excitement, keeping the audience engaged and on the edge of their seats. Like, John falling down the stairs 24/7. Boom, 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 boom. And like, how is John going to overcome that obstacle? And it's mainly because of how it's shot. So, with all of that established, here's something that you need to be acquainted with when it comes to the significance of John Wick's cinematography and why I expect this emphasis on good cinematography to cross over to John Wick Chapter 4. I find that the significance of cinematography in the John Wick film series extends beyond its technical prowess and visual appeal. The cinematography plays a crucial role in enhancing the storytelling, establishing the film's unique atmosphere, and immersing the audience in the world of John Wick for many reasons, which mostly consist of, like adapting the gritty and dark tone of the films, thus creating a visually distinctive world that reflects the characters' lives as assassins, action set pieces. The cinematography for the past 3 John Wick films also had to transport the audience into this underground assassin's world, making it feel tangible and believable. The sheer emotional impact, which should go without saying, because at least I hope that the audience felt not only the emotional impact of John Wick's wife dying, but gosh damn it, the death of his dog in the first movie. If you don't feel an emotional impact by watching that horrific moment, man, maybe you do not possess a soul. Like, no. Oh, and here's another example of why cinematography is crucial for John Wick. The utilization of low-angle shots, for example, depicts Wick as a dominant and powerful force, heightening his presence and intensity on screen. Needless to say, there are a multitude of reasons why cinematography is going to be a contributing factor of today's verdict in this episode of the Cinema Courtroom. Cinematography is indeed the defining element of John Wick Chapter 4. So really, it should go without saying that the cinematography is a vital aspect of this film's visual storytelling. And what I loved viewing in John Wick 4 was the long takes and fluid camera movements during certain action sequences. Action sequences that felt like you were beholding something from an epic, visually stunning, and high-grade video game cutscene. The color grading is also very consistent, which I greatly appreciated, because I kind of have difficulty when watching a movie when when the color grading is too dark, but then, which I'm fine with, and if it's too bright as well, like, okay, fine, as long as it stays consistent for the whole movie, right? But then when all of a sudden it shifts and there's this annoying inconsistency, yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. So I'm glad, I really appreciate that John Wick 4 made it real easy on my eyelids. And I liked how they used a wide variety of camera angles and perspectives in order to boost the visual impact of this specific installment. I liked how they utilized high contrast lighting with deep shadows and intense highlights, which adds a sense of drama and visual depth to most of this movie's scenes. Overall, the cinematography in John Wick Chapter 4 is highly effective in conveying the film's action-packed and stylish narrative. Through its use of dynamic camera movements, striking lightning, and visually captivating locations, the cinematography of John Wick Chapter 4 elevates the film's visual storytelling, crafting an immersive and visually engaging experience for the audience. Keanu Reeves has demonstrated remarkable versatility throughout his career, successfully portraying a diverse range of characters across various genres, from his breakout role as Ted in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure to his iconic roles in action films like The Matrix trilogy, well, now a franchise because we got The Matrix 4, and then John Wick, which is also a franchise because we got Chapter 4 of John Wick. Reeves has proven his ability to adapt to a variety of roles and deliver compelling performances. And on top of that, Keanu Reeves has a natural on-screen charisma that makes him highly likable and endearing to audiences. And not to mention that he literally donated his entire paycheck from The Matrix 4, I believe, to charity. So that is literally a man who knows where he comes from and wants to help out others. And that's someone who we need to aspire to be. So, yeah, Keanu Reeves he's an awesome guy. So, we have the awesome Keanu Reeves reprising his iconic role as John Wick in this movie again. And as a fan of the John Wick series, I must say I thoroughly enjoy watching him in action. However, one thing that comes to mind is the relatively limited amount of dialogue that John Wick, as played by Keanu Reeves, has throughout the movies. This aspect of the John Wick character provides Keanu Reeves with fewer lines to deliver, act, and just showcase his acting abilities overall. In Chapter 4, it also appears that John Wick continues to be a man of few words. While some may view this as a missed opportunity for Keanu Reeves to demonstrate his range as an actor, I find it intriguing how Keanu Reeves manages to captivate audiences even with minimal dialogue. And whenever he speaks more than one sentence, it's very impactful dialogue. So it's like quality over quantity dialogue. It's fascinating to see how he can convey so much through his expressions, body language, and sheer intensity. In fact, there's a popular saying that the quietest person in the room is often the loudest person in the room. Like, this saying seems to perfectly encapsulate Keanu Reeves' portrayal of John Wick, despite his character's silence for most of the movie. Reeves, in John Wick Chapter 4, manages to bring a powerful presence to the screen, making every moment count, especially the end of the third act where he finally dies. I mean, it's a big deal when you slay the Baba Yaga, but now the Baba Yaga is deceased. But the way he just embraces his fate and the acting that went along with it was impeccable. It's remarkable to witness how Keanu Reeves has truly made the character of John Wick his own print. He has taken the script's foundations and added layers and layers and layers after layers of depth, complexity, and emotion to the John Wick role. Through his nuanced performance, Keanu Reeves brings a sense of authenticity to John Wick, elevating the character from a mere action star to a fully realized and memorable individual. The way, honestly, the way he adapts John Wick from the script is truly commendable, ladies and gentlemen. Reeves infuses the character with a quiet strength and an unwavering determination that just resonates with a multitude of audiences worldwide. And that's what I enjoy about seeing Keanu Reeves play any character, but especially in John Wick Chapter 4. It's not just about the lines he speaks, but the way he acts them and delivers whatever, lines that he speaks. The subtle nuances in his delivery that make every word count. In a world saturated with action movies and characters who rely heavily on dialogue to make an impact, and rightfully so, because the dialogue is literally you listening to the audio coming from the character. Like, the character's looks are everything, sure. The way they're written is equally as important, especially how the dialogue is. So, what you hear from the character is likely something, I don't know, you might accidentally quote in real life from that character, if it's a damn good quote. Or maybe, it speaks volumes of, maybe the character is bad because of the shitty dialogue. Like, dialogue is very important. So maybe it's like, the less you say, the better kind of situation with Keanu Reeves and John Wick. And while cliche at times, the words that John Wick does utter carry significance and weight, further highlighting the enigmatic nature of the character. So, as we eagerly await the news and release of, maybe, fingers crossed, next John Wick chapter, we can be rest assured that Keanu Reeves will continue to captivate us with his portrayal of the legendary assassin. Keanu Reeves' ability to convey so much with a low quantity of dialogue is a testament to his skills as an actor. And while we may crave more words from John Wick, if he's actually dead, but I think he is, and he should stay dead, there's no denying that the quiet intensity Keanu Reeves brings to the screen is what makes the character so damn fascinating and memorable. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a quick program break and then continue on with the rest of this review. If you've been captivated by what you've heard so far, prepare yourself for a treat throughout the remainder of this podcast, because we're not finished, ladies and gentlemen. But before we proceed, let me take a moment to remind you of an exciting opportunity. You can become one of, yes, the first listeners to enjoy new episodes on my audio feed. And hear this? It only requires 2 simple steps. To ensure you never miss a single captivating episode of the Cinema Courtroom Show, simply hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell right now. Or rate this podcast out of 5 on Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or even the Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel for exclusive video coverage every week. We've got you covered. Prepare yourself to dive deep in the thrilling realm of movie verdicts and industry affairs with the Cinema Courtroom Show. And here's an exciting bonus for all of our esteemed listeners. By subscribing to the Cinema Courtroom today, I can promise you a front row seat to insightful discussions and thought-provoking debates that will enhance your movie watching experience. Look, this is the perfect podcast for movie connoisseurs like yourself. I am your host, Makram, urging you to subscribe and join our cinema jury, where we determine the verdicts. All you have to do is look up and subscribe to the Cinema Courtroom on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or the Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel today. Embrace the power of justice in the cinemaverse with the Cinema Courtroom, powered by real passion, fueling film and TV fandom. In the movie Titanic, Jake Dawson, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, tragically perishes after the ship sinks, sacrificing himself to save Rose, portrayed by Kate Winslet. That's, ladies and gentlemen, the first death that has been portrayed in a movie. As for another death, in Avengers Infinity War, several Marvel characters meet their demise, including Spider-Man, Black Panther, and Gamora, among others, due to the devastating actions of the supervillain Thanos. That's death number 2. And of course, the iconic character of Severus Snape, portrayed by the, may he rest in peace, Alan Rickman. He meets a heartbreaking end in the end of the Harry Potter film series, as Snape's true allegiance is revealed, protecting Harry Potter in the end. So, my point is, death in movies is not a alien concept. It's a pretty universal one, especially when a protagonist dies, and that means that we kind of die along with them. In The Sopranos final season, we died with Tony Soprano. And many of you are going to convince me that, maybe he wasn't dead. It was a metaphorical death. No, I think he died. But the reason why I think that's because we died with the character. When a character dies, especially the protagonist, it feels like we are in a conflict of ourselves and trying to figure out who are we supposed to root for now that John Wick in John Wick Chapter 4 has died. Okay, so I want to capitalize on this program break and touch on a very significant moment of the John Wick franchise. An obvious one at that. I already mentioned it. John Wick's Chapter 4 death scene.
You think your wife can hear you?
No.
And why bother?
Maybe I'm wrong.
The dead are gone. Only the living matter. After my daughter was born, I want to leave this life. I thought I did.
But you didn't.
We're damned. You and I.
On that we agree.
My daughter's not. It was between you and her. You're going to die.
Alright, now it's pretty obvious what the writers were trying to go through with John Wick's death. John Wick's death scene is meant to serve as a permanent reprieve for all of that shit and dirty work that we had to witness John Wick do in chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4, of course. Well, in chapter 1, his dog and wife dies, and then at the end of chapter 2, he's declared excommunicado. He was only given a few minutes by Winston. He has a number of bounties on his head. And oh, speaking of Winston, he had a falling out of him in chapter 3 when he just shot him. So, falling out with former allies. And also, as we've seen in chapter 4, crossing paths with old enemies. A death scene serves as a wonderful resolution for all of these events. And not only that, but John Wick is well known by the audience for his relentless pursuit of vengeance and his endurance of immense physical and emotional pain. And not to mention, just like James Bond, there are certain characters who bore you to a substantial extent because they just don't die. Like, doesn't that also agitate you? John Wick should have died in John Wick 1 when he was captured for the first time. It was too much plot armor. So having John Wick finding freedom in death in John Wick Chapter 4 was most definitely a bold-ass creative decision. Just like snapping half of the universe in Avengers Infinity War was a bold creative decision. Because we're talking about marketable IPs. You kill them off, then no more toys unless you revive them, like we did in Avengers Endgame, and alas, we got 2 more Spider-Man movies. Because the death in that movie wasn't permanent. But if we go by the assumption that John Wick's death is indeed permanent, and if they're not going to do a prequel because they want our perception of John Wick to die with the character, which means no revisiting past events, who we saw as John Wick is the John Wick we're going to get. If they're actually going to, conclude his story arc in Chapter 4 for good with his death scene, then that is something we must commend the studio for. Because John Wick is a substantial cash cow. You kill the cow, you get no more milk, and I don't know, maybe the village starves, or you go find another cow. Or breed another cow. Find another assassin. Do a spin-off of another character, like maybe Winston. Also, looking at through a story perspective, John Wick's death could represent a form of redemption. Because throughout the John Wick series, John Wick has been haunted by his past actions and the lives he has taken. In his final moments, his death could serve as a way to atone and seek the hidden vault of redemption. Okay, so now that I touched on John Wick's death scene, we are going to now transition away from this program break. And also, let me know what you guys think about those, spontaneous program breaks, because there might be an insight that I'm missing, and those program breaks that give me some time to, deviate from my notes and just speak what's on my mind, and just, because the point of my review isn't just to do a structured, analysis. Trust me, that's one of the main key components that I must always maintain with every review. Sure, but I also want to try and encapsulate all my thoughts about a movie, not just John Wick Chapter 4, any movie. So, if you guys want me to do more of those, I will happily extend the program break. Also, it gives you guys time to, relax. And, And okay. So, we're going to continue on with the main components of the John Wick Chapter 4 review. The comparisons of John Wick Chapter 4 to John Wick 1, 2, and 3.
Have you given any thought to where this ends? The table will never stop. You know this. No one, not even you, can kill everyone.
You ready, John?
Yeah.
There are a multitude of things that I have to do before I even dare compare an action movie like John Wick to another John Wick movie. 1, 2, and 3 with Chapter 4. One of the things before we draw such comparisons is to analyze the storytelling elements by, evaluating the plot structure, character development, pacing, narrative coherence of each John Wick motion picture. We must also look out for engaging storylines, well-rounded characters, and the effective utilization of twists, suspense, or emotional arcs. Stuff like that you often see from an action movie. Oh, and also, performances. Paying attention to the performances of the actors involved is an important thing to do when, we tend to compare action movies to another action movie, including an actor's ability to portray their characters convincingly. Top-tier stunt work, delivering impactful dialogue, and effectively handle through that stunt work physical action sequences. Now, before I get started with the rating comparisons of John Wick Chapter 4 to John Wick 1, 2, and 3, I think it's important to break down the nuance of the protagonist, John Wick, which the movie is named after. In John Wick, the first installment, John wants to put his assassin life behind him, right? Until his dog gets murdered, and then he goes berserk. And good for him. I think any one who has formed an attachment with a dog and it gets killed in front of you, you know what? Go get that revenge. I draw a line when you kill dogs. Hey, the bunch of humans that John Wick killed, okay, insubstantial compared to the life of a dog. I'm just kidding, obviously. A living entity is a living entity. But, yeah, I'm slightly in favor of a dog's life and a human's life. Because, dogs, they behave more decently than, assholes in our reality. My rambling aside, right? No issues there. John Wick is back in the game. A game that he excels significantly at. In John Wick Chapter 2, John must confront the realization that there is no way out of the game when he had to do a task for Santonio, who previously allowed him to retire with Helen by helping him complete an impossible task. And then we have John Wick Chapter 3, which is essentially John's self-identity story, and also being on the run after being declared excommunicado at the end of Chapter 2. And then we have Chapter 4, a determined yet worn-down John Wick. In contrast to Chapter 3, he is less angrier in Chapter 4. Chapter 3, he was much, much, much angrier. So anyway, my point here is that you could easily chart John Wick's progression until Chapter 4 when it comes to his character arc. But how about as a separate movie? As a movie, I think that John Wick 4 excels brilliantly. It is packed with entertaining action set pieces, and although the plot is very basic, I wouldn't even call this movie a great movie. It is like on my list of top mindless action movies with plot armor of all time. And what's so wrong with that? Like, I'm not watching The Godfather, but I do think that the first John Wick film and third movie has a few elements I like more than this fourth installment of John Wick. For example, the first John Wick film is what reinvented action pictures and gave it a bit more plot than other action movies like Fast and Furious. In the third installment of John Wick, the writers managed to surprise us with Winston's betrayal, which they kind of neglect in John Wick Chapter 4. Is it just me, or did you also think that they were going to do a last-minute scene where John grabs a gun and then shoots Winston out of nowhere? because the cliffhanger of chapter 3 was literally Lawrence Fishburne's character asking him if he was pissed, and John Wick was like, yeah. Okay. Give up, Makram. Give up. You are not good at impersonating another character's voice. Give up! Okay. Right. But then all of a sudden, Winston becomes John Wick's sponsor for the third act duel in chapter 4? It doesn't add up. All that momentum from the ending of John Wick 3 had just died along with John Wick. And I'm sorry, I have many positive things to say about John Wick 4, but this is one of the negative things that I took away from the movie. All in all, John Wick Chapter 4's comparison to John Wick 1, 2, and 3 is that John Wick 1, 2, and 3 gave us something more fresh than John Wick Chapter 4, but Chapter 4 is packed with more action scenes and gives us closure for John Wick. At least until they greenlighted John Wick 5, where they resurrect John Wick or give us some bogus explanation to how he was fake dead, or a prequel movie just to milk the character dry. Who knows? All I know is that I had a fun time watching John Wick Chapter 4. The cinematography was brilliant, it had skillful acting, and the plot, well, it's not the best thing that I watched. I wish they put more of an emphasis on Winston's portrayal. But I mean, hey, the action was top-notch at the end of the day, and there's certainly more of that as opposed to John Wick 1, 2, and 3. And I have a great deal of respect for Keanu Reeves, regardless of what movie or John Wick movie that he's acting in. So I mean, there's that with my comparison for John Wick Chapter 4 to the previous other 3 installments. Okay, so now that we have conversed in length about the plot, cinematography, acting, and where it ranks in comparison to John Wick 1, 2, and 3, I am going to conclude this cinema courtroom hearing with my final insights on the movie and determine once and for all, ladies and gentlemen, whether or not John Wick Chapter 4 is a worthy addition to the John Wick franchise. My final verdict for this movie is that John Wick Chapter 4 might not compare to the original story concepts given to us in John Wick 1 to 3. It sets a precedent of what action in cinema should look like. The 4th installment in the franchise builds upon the foundation laid by its predecessors, exploring new territories and introducing intriguing developments that leave us eagerly anticipating what lies ahead of the road. The seamless blend of jaw-dropping action sequences and intricate storytelling is a testament to the talent and dedication of the filmmakers, actors, and crew involved in the production. Keanu Reeves, in particular, has become synonymous with the character of John Wick, embodying the perfect balance of vulnerability and unstoppable determination. It is difficult to imagine anyone else besides Keanu Reeves stepping into the role, right? But I think that the strength of the John Wick franchise lies not solely in one actor, but in the world that has been crafted. Furthermore, John Wick Chapter 4 expands the boundaries of the series, pushing the narrative into uncharted territory while maintaining the core elements that fans have come to appreciate and adore. It introduces new characters, alliances, and challenges, creating a sense of excitement and unpredictability, which I respect movies doing, especially action films. The film's ability to evolve and reinvent itself while staying true to its essence is a testament to the creative vision behind the franchise. In my final thoughts, I also express my gratitude for the John Wick franchise's contribution to the world of action cinema. I believe that John Wick has set a new standard for thrilling, character-driven storytelling and continues to captivate audiences with its unique blend of heart-pounding action and a sprinkle, just a sprinkle mind you, of emotional depth and some complexity. Well, it's mostly just my wife has died and yeah, there's nothing more. That's as complex as John Wick can be. But it's still very emotional in some scenes to an audience that, I don't know, maybe they lost a wife or, a dog or maybe they are, coming to terms with their inevitable death. I mean, aren't we all? So, I digress to say that John Wick Chapter 4's commitment to delivering high-quality action sequences and maintaining a coherent and engaging storyline is evident throughout the series. Therefore, John Wick Chapter 4 is a worthy addition to the franchise indeed, further solidifying its status as a benchmark for action films, even though I don't think John Wick 4 did much reinventing action movie tropes like the first movie did. But it was still a lot of fun to watch. And while John Wick 4 may not reach the same heights as its predecessors in terms of originality, it embraces the formula that has made the series successful and delivers a satisfying and exhilarating experience. Whether or not Keanu Reeves, and finger crossed he does if he chooses to revive John Wick, continues to portray John Wick is irrelevant. I think that the world that has been crafted and the legacy that has been established will undoubtedly continue to captivate audiences for many years to come. As we eagerly await the next chapter in John Wick's journey, we can only speculate on the exciting possibilities that lie ahead. The John Wick franchise has indeed, again, proven its ability to surprise and entertain, and we eagerly anticipate the further expansion of this remarkable cinematic universe. May the Baba Yaga story continue to evolve and thrill us, with or without the familiar face of Keanu Reeves as John Wick. We have now reached the end of this podcast. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to the Cinema Courtroom Show podcast, where we conversed about John Wick Chapter 4. I had a lot of fun doing this podcast and just talking about how, great Keanu Reeves was as the character John Wick, etc., etc. So be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this installment of the Cinema Courtroom. I sincerely hope to see you guys next time in the next episode of the Cinema Courtroom Show, which launches on Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, Google, Substack, Amazon, or the Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel. Thank you once again for listening to the end. I am your galactic judge, Makram, and I hope you have a spectacular spectacular day.
Hello there.
Court is now dismissed.